From the Opopco Studios in Oklahoma City, this is an OSU update with Kyle Fredrickson. I'm Jenny Carlson. Kyle, obviously signing day fast approaching. Wednesday is the big day, and the Cowboys continue to add to their commitment list. And probably most importantly, they've added not one but two running backs, a real area of need. And they got one that has been committed for a long time to Georgia.
Yeah, this was really big for the Cowboys. Really the story of this recruiting season was whether or not they could get a running back commit late in the class, being that Ronald Jones had decommitted and picked USC just a couple months ago. And really for the Cowboys, starting with Chris Carson, like you had mentioned, a Georgia commit from Butler Community College in Kansas, really gives the Cowboys a power back, which they desperately needed after Desmond Rowland, graduated after this past season. And then another guy who in some ways, we don't want to make the broad comparison, but kind of replaces Tyreek Hill. Jeff Carr is from Temple High School, a small, shifty, multi-purpose guy who did a lot of things for a team that reached the state championship game last season. So you figure the Cowboys saw what they did with Tyreek Hill this past season, saw some of the skills that Jeff Carr brings to the table, and he figures to also have an impact. Whether or not that's next season is yet to be seen. He's got to put on some weight, kind of get ready for that next college level. But as far as Carson is concerned, you got to figure he can compete for that day one job, being that he really brings that physical presence, 6'1", 270, compared to Rennie Childs, who's a little bit of a smaller prototypical back, gives the Cowboys that 1-2 punch to give them a lot more confidence heading into next season.
Well, an area that they've addressed in recruiting being that running back position, an area that got addressed late last season was offensive line, but now they may be looking for a new coach for that position. Bob Conley, after only 1 year at OSU, reports out that he may be leaving for USC. Obviously, with recruiting ongoing, you never want a coach that's out in the mix to be potentially going somewhere else. What do we know at this point as far as his potential departure?
Well, OSU hasn't put out anything official yet. Sources with Scout.com said that the decision's already been made, but they're waiting to actually officially, formally announce it following signing day. And that makes sense because, this is an area where the Cowboys brought in Bob Connolly, and from the second he got on campus, this guy was a recruiting machine. This was an area of need the Cowboys had addressed, starting as far as last offseason offensive line. Connolly went out and signed 3 guys in the early signing period, including UAB transfer Victor Salako, and then 3 high school linemen who had also signed letters of intent. So it makes you wonder what's going to happen moving forward, and we're already seeing some of the results in that. Josh Jones, a 3-star rated offensive tackle from Bush, Texas, he had decommitted yesterday and flipped for Houston. So that's one guy. As far as what's going to happen moving forward, it'll be interesting because we're so close to signing day, but the good news for Cowboys fans is that at least 3 of those offensive linemen are already enrolled and figure to compete next year.
I guess something we can't know is obviously Bob Conley is recruiting his type of guys, if you will, and Joe Wickline had done that before, is again another shift to a new coach who we don't know who that would be at this point. Does that continue to sort of add a little bit more of a high wire act to the offensive line?
Well, it's a good question because, one of the assistants the Cowboys have brought in, Eric Wolford from Youngstown State, had the offensive line background, was known as a 10-tense guy. But just last week, reports were out that the San Francisco 49ers actually hired him away from OSU. So that would have been another guy who could have filled Connolly's role and also brought, the motto of intensity, kind of a Wickline style guy, very, very militarian and intense in what he does. But now that the Cowboys don't even have him, that's a good point. Who is the right fit for this team? You go 10 years almost with one guy, Joe Wickline, and now it seems the Cowboys might have 2 different guys in 2 years. So a lot of questions remain. It'll be interesting to see, like I said, with those last 2 high school guys to see what they might do. But it is so late in the process that, it'd be interesting to see if those guys would want to flip at this point.
An area that doesn't get a lot of conversation, but Cowboy fans know after last year just how important that offensive line can be. All right, we'll have lots of signing day coverage on newsok.com and in the Oklahoman, so be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.